The clang of silverware echoed sharply across the marble counter as Mabel's hand froze mid-air, the bite of risotto halfway to her mouth. Her eyes narrowed, focusing not on the food, but something glinting beneath the creamy grains on the plate in front of her. Something off. It wasn't the fancy restaurant lighting. It wasn't her bifocals playing tricks. No. Something was wrong with the dish. She looked around. The room buzzed with soft jazz, clinking glasses, and hushed celebrity chatter. The new bistro in Soho was a haven for Hollywood types, avoiding the West Coast spotlight. And tonight, just one table over, Bruce Willis sat across from a thin man with slicked back hair and an expensive watch that gleamed like bad intentions. Mabel had only come to New York to visit her niece. Dinner at Les Coulisses was a spontaneous splurge, a celebration of life after beating cancer. Again, the hostess had raised an eyebrow when she asked for a table for one. Mabel didn't care. She liked watching people, but now she couldn't watch anything except the plate in front of her. She leaned in closer, ignoring the waiter's side glance. Her wrinkled fingers parted the risotto slightly with the edge of her fork. There it was again, something metallic. It wasn't a garnish. It wasn't a mistake. It was a tiny shard of glass. Her heart thudded. A mistake, maybe. A chipped bowl. But her instincts, sharpened from decades as a school nurse and a lifetime of surviving what the world threw at her, said no. Not a mistake. She shifted her gaze to Bruce's table. He laughed at something his companion said, lifting his own fork toward his plate. Identical risotto. Mabel's stomach clenched. She stood abruptly. The waiter appeared like a magician, polite panic under his polished surface. "Ma'am, is everything—" She cut him off. "Call the manager now." She didn't wait. She stepped toward Bruce's table. "Excuse me," she said, voice louder than intended. The actor turned. His companion scowled. Bruce smiled the kind of smile that used to melt the box office. "Hi there. Everything all right?" Mabel didn't smile back. "Don't eat that," she said firmly, pointing at his plate. "There's glass in the risotto." The other man scoffed. "Lady, maybe you should sit down." "No," Mabel said, unwavering. "There's something in the food. I found glass in mine." Bruce blinked. The fork hovered. Slowly he set it down. The manager arrived, red-faced and breathless. "Is there a problem, sir? Ma'am?" Mabel pointed again. "I want someone to test that food. Something's wrong with it." The man across from Bruce leaned back, folding his arms. "This is ridiculous." But Bruce had gone quiet. He looked at Mabel, then back at his plate, then at the man beside him. "You said you ordered for both of us." Silence. A tight silence. Bruce stood slowly, his eyes never leaving the other man's face. "Who are you, really?" The man's jaw tightened, and Mabel knew. She had just stepped into something much bigger than a ruined dinner. She turned to the camera above the bar. She didn't care how crazy she looked. "I want this on record," she said. "There's something dangerous happening here." A reporter at a nearby table was already texting furiously. Someone else whispered, "Is that Bruce Willis?" And in that moment, surrounded by strangers and secrets, Mabel's hands stopped shaking. She hadn't survived this long to ignore her gut now. If you're just as curious as Mabel to find out what happens next, don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment below. We read every single one. The restaurant had gone dead quiet. Bruce stepped back from the table, his hand still hovering protectively near his chest, as if he expected something worse than glass in his food. The manager, a tall man with a French accent that had started to slip, waved for someone in the kitchen. Mabel watched as a young sous chef, maybe in his late 20s, was pulled from the back and whispered to in hurried French. The boy's face turned pale, and Mabel knew he hadn't known what was in the food. Bruce's dinner companion, still seated, crossed one leg over the other like this was nothing more than an inconvenience. He finally spoke, voice cold. "This woman is clearly unwell. Call someone." Mabel took a step forward. "Don't gaslight me. I spent 30 years cleaning blood off playground pavement and pulling metal from kids' knees. I know glass when I see it." Bruce looked at her, really looked, with those worn eyes that had seen a lifetime of scripts and secrets. "You're serious?" She nodded. "I found a piece the size of a dime in mine." A murmur rippled through the restaurant. Someone's phone camera clicked. Bruce exhaled slowly and turned to the manager. "I want every plate of risotto in this room tested. Now." The manager nodded stiffly and retreated, pulling staff into a flurry of movement. The man across from Bruce finally stood. He adjusted his jacket, like this was just a business meeting gone sideways. "I have to make a call." Bruce blocked his path. "Not until we know what's going on." "You don't give orders here, Bruce." Mabel narrowed her eyes. "Who are you?" The man ignored her. Bruce pressed. "You said you worked for Rickman Studios. You knew details about a script I haven't even confirmed yet." A flicker, barely, of a smile crossed the man's face. "Maybe I read the trades." "No," Bruce said, voice lower now. "You said things only a few people would know." Then he looked back at Mabel. "You saved me." Mabel felt her heart pound again, not from fear this time, but from something deeper, a sense of gravity. "I didn't save you," she said. "I just said what needed saying." Sirens cut through the night air outside. Police. A woman in heels slipped out the front door. Another table quietly asked for their check. Bruce turned to her. "What's your name?" "Mabel Higgins," she said. "Retired from Ohio, visiting my niece." He extended his hand. "Bruce." She gave him a look. "I know who you are." They both smiled, for just a second. Then the door opened and two uniformed officers stepped inside. The manager pointed toward Bruce's table. Mabel expected chaos, but instead everything became quiet, focused, like the air in the room shifted. One of the officers approached the man in the blazer. "Sir, we're going to ask you to stay seated until we complete our investigation. I haven't done anything. We'll figure that out." Bruce turned to Mabel again. "You said you're from Ohio?" She nodded. He hesitated. "Would you mind sticking around for a bit? I could use someone honest in the room." Mabel looked at the officers. Then at the man who had nearly poisoned a movie star in the middle of Manhattan. Then back at Bruce Willis. "Sure," she said slowly. "But you owe me a dessert." The back of the restaurant had been turned into an impromptu interview room. Bruce sat on one side of a linen-draped table, arms folded, eyes sharp. Mabel sat next to him, sipping lukewarm chamomile tea one of the staff had brought her. Across from them, Detective Carla Moreno flipped through her small notepad, her jaw tight and serious. "So let me get this straight," Moreno said, pausing to glance at both of them. "You noticed glass in your risotto, confronted the staff, and then warned Mr. Willis before he took a bite?" Mabel nodded. "That's right. And you," she turned to Bruce, "confirmed the man you were dining with was the one who ordered for both of you?" "He insisted," Bruce said. "Said it was a gift from the studio, called it a thank you dinner." Moreno scratched something into her pad. "The guy gave a name. Jeff Collins. Claimed he worked under Paul Rickman." Moreno's eyebrows rose slightly. "Rickman died last month." Bruce's voice dropped. "Exactly." The door opened behind them. One of the forensics officers leaned in and handed Moreno a small, sealed bag. Inside it, a sliver of clear glass, sharp as a razor. "From the food?" Moreno asked. "For sure," the tech confirmed. "Plate was clean otherwise. It was inside the risotto, not on top." Moreno turned back toward Mabel. "Do you have any enemies?" Mabel blinked. "Me? No, unless you count the HOA back in Dayton." A small smile flickered at Bruce's lips. Moreno kept her focus. "All right. Mr. Willis, do you feel like this was targeted?" Bruce looked down, thoughtful. "Yes and no. I'm not Tom Cruise. I don't have stalkers. But I've been vocal lately about some things. This could have been someone trying to scare me. Or shut me up." Mabel studied his face. He wasn't acting. Moreno looked between them. "We'll take Mr. Collins into custody, if that's even his real name. But we're going to need statements from both of you." Bruce nodded. "I'm not going back to Ohio until I do," Mabel added. When the officers stepped out, Bruce turned to her. "I'm sorry your night turned into this," he said. Mabel waved him off. You kidding? This is more excitement than I've had in 10 years. Beats bingo night. He chuckled, then grew quiet. Can I ask you something? Go ahead. Why'd you say something? Most people would have assumed it was a fluke. Let it go. Mabel exhaled. I had a student once, 4th grader, brought a bag of Halloween candy to school. One piece had a sewing needle in it. He bit into it before I noticed. Spent 3 hours in surgery. I promised myself I'd never ignore that feeling again. When something feels wrong, it is. Bruce stared at her, visibly moved. That kid was lucky. Maybe. Or maybe I was just doing my job. He leaned back, nodding slowly. Well, you weren't a nurse tonight, Mabel. You were a damn hero. She gave him a crooked smile. Don't tell my niece that. She already thinks I'm insufferable. The detective re-entered. We got a hit on his fingerprints. Fake name. He's not in entertainment. He's been flagged before, connected to some underground group, anti-Hollywood types. They think celebrities are cultural puppets. Bruce raised an eyebrow. That's specific. Moreno nodded. He didn't just pick you randomly. Mabel didn't say anything, but deep down she felt it. This wasn't over yet. 2 days later, the world caught up. Mabel sat at her niece's kitchen table, the hum of the refrigerator the only sound besides the distant rumble of New York traffic. A copy of the New York Post lay open in front of her, the headline screaming across the top, Willis almost poisoned, retired nurse saves icon at NYC hotspot. The photo was grainy, but unmistakable. Bruce, mid-sentence. Mabel, standing behind him with her finger pointed at the table. Her mouth was open in mid-warning. She looked taller in the picture somehow, fierce. Still think I was being dramatic? She asked. Her niece Lena leaned over her shoulder with a fresh cup of coffee. I never said that. You said, and I quote, Aunt Mabel, you always think everything is a conspiracy. Lena smiled, hands raised. Okay, I did say that, but you were right this time. Mabel sipped her coffee, eyes scanning the article. They got some of it wrong, of course. Said she was a former school nurse turned amateur sleuth. Made her sound like she carried a magnifying glass and a trench coat. But the important part was there. Bruce Willis hadn't eaten. The suspect had been arrested. Charges were pending. No one else had been hurt. And for some reason they listed Mabel's age in bold, 70, like that was the part that made it remarkable. Bruce had texted her that morning, a simple note. You still in town? Dinner on me, no risotto. She hadn't replied yet. She didn't quite know how. Her phone buzzed again. Lena glanced over. Is that him? Mabel nodded. Says he wants to introduce me to his wife. Says she wants to meet the woman who saw what no one else did. Lena raised an eyebrow. You going? Mabel leaned back. I don't know. What would I even say? Lena sat down across from her. You'd say whatever you've always said, the truth. Mabel looked at her niece, the young woman she'd practically raised when her sister got sick. Lena, with her career in digital media and her ever-rotating collection of houseplants. You think I did the right thing? Lena's expression softened. Aunt Mabel, you stopped someone from hurting people. You didn't freeze, you trusted yourself. I don't know what kind of world lets that be anything less than right. Mabel stared out the window. Across the street, a man was walking his dog, bundled in a puffy jacket despite the spring sun. Normalcy. The kind you don't realize you miss until it's nearly broken. That night came back to her in fragments. The way Bruce's fork hovered, the glint of glass, the way the other man's smile never quite reached his eyes. She hadn't known what was happening, but she'd felt it. And that had been enough. She stood up, smoothing the creases in her jeans. I think I'll take a walk. You want me to come? Mabel shook her head. No, I want to be alone with my thoughts for a bit. Lena didn't push. As Mabel stepped out into the bright afternoon, the city seemed to hold its breath. She passed a newsstand with her face still on the front page. The vendor looked at her twice, then said nothing. She kept walking, because some moments don't need parades or explanations. They just need people to notice and act. The restaurant Bruce had chosen this time wasn't flashy. No paparazzi, no white tablecloths or tasting menus, Just a family-owned Italian place tucked between a dry cleaner and a bookstore in Brooklyn. He'd said the meatballs were life-changing. Mabel sat across from him, sipping red wine. His wife, Emma, had just stepped away to take a call from their daughter. "So," Bruce said, looking at her with that familiar half-smile, "do you still think I owe you dessert?" "I think," Mabel replied, "you owe me a recipe for these meatballs." He laughed, relaxed in a way he hadn't been when they first met. The weight of the past week had settled around them. Headlines fading, lawyers calling, interviews postponed. But tonight wasn't about any of that. Tonight was about being. "You ever think about how strange it all was?" Bruce asked. "That you ended up at that table, that night?" "All the time," she said. "You believe in fate." Mabel shook her head. "I believe in paying attention." He nodded, quiet. "I think I spent a lot of years not doing that. Too many premieres. Too many people telling me I was fine when I wasn't. And now..." Bruce looked out the window where people passed by in coats and headphones, not recognizing him. "Now I'm trying to slow down, be present. I've been sick, Mabel. Not like dying tomorrow sick, but not the same as I used to be." She nodded. "I know." "You do?" She shrugged. "I watched my husband fade long before his body gave out." Sometimes the silence creeps in before the symptoms. People don't always see it. Bruce leaned forward. "You saw." "I saw," she said simply. Emma returned to the table and sat beside her husband. "Sorry, that was Scout. She's thrilled to meet you one day, by the way." Mabel smiled. "I'm just a retired nurse with a big mouth." "No," Emma said. "You're the reason he came home that night." They sat for a while in comfortable quiet, the kind that only follows something real. Later, as they walked her to the curb, Bruce pulled something from his jacket. A photograph. Old, clearly handled often. "This is from my first movie set," he said. "I kept this on my fridge for decades." It showed him as a young man squinting into the sun, holding a script and wearing an oversized jacket. Behind him, out of focus, a crew member was laughing mid-sentence. "I used to think this photo mattered because of what it said about who I was," he continued. "But now I think it matters because of who I still want to be." He handed it to her. "I want you to have it, not because you saved me, but because you reminded me what it means to pay attention to life." Mabel took it slowly. The edges were soft from years of handling. "I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything," Bruce said. "Just keep noticing things." As her cab pulled up, Bruce opened the door for her like a gentleman from another era. Emma gave her a quick hug. The kind that says thank you without words. Inside the cab, Mabel looked at the photo one more time. She didn't need to be famous. She didn't need recognition. She just needed to know that listening to her gut still mattered. That one moment could shift the direction of someone else's life. And maybe that was the story worth telling all along. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe and click the video on screen. It was chosen just for you, and you're going to love it.